Have you ever wondered why a man grows restless when a woman retreats into silence? It is because silence is not emptiness. It is a mirror, one that reflects back every shadow he tries to escape. In the absence of your words, his mind begins to wander into places he cannot control. He projects his own fears and longings onto the void, and suddenly your quiet becomes louder than any argument could ever be. Silence becomes a storm, and he cannot decide if he is its victim or its worshipper. The high priestess archetype has always known this secret. She does not fight for attention, nor does she beg to be understood. She dwells in stillness, like a temple that cannot be entered by force. And when a man confronts this mystery, something ancient stirs within him. He feels the unbearable weight of his anima, the unconscious feminine within, pressing against the locked doors of his ego. Your silence awakens in him a hunger to bridge the gap, not only with you, but with the uncharted depths of himself. He becomes a wanderer lost in a labyrinth where every turn leads him back to your absence. When a woman withdraws her voice, she becomes untouchable. The modern world tells men they can conquer through noise, through pursuit, through demand. But silence strips them of their weapons. Without response, he cannot measure his worth, cannot confirm his power, cannot soothe his pride. And in that uncertainty, obsession takes root. It is not you he battles with. It is the unknown, the endless echo chamber of his own unresolved desires. Like Jung taught, what he refuses to recognize in himself, he will chase outside of himself. And when you stand still, he finds no escape from the mirror. This is why the most magnetic women are often the most restrained. They do not flood the air with explanations. They do not try to soothe male insecurity. Instead, they hold silence like a chalice, knowing it draws a man deeper into his own shadows. Every unanswered message, every pause after his attempt to provoke, becomes a thread that pulls him further into the weave of obsession. He wonders what you think, what you feel, what you hide, and the truth is that it no longer matters. What matters is that he has lost the illusion of control. For you, the immediate shift is subtle yet profound. Instead of defending your emotions or proving your worth, you lean into silence as a source of strength. The micro-action is simple. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain, pause instead. Let the space breathe. Trust that silence speaks more loudly than justification ever could. In that pause, you claim sovereignty. You are no longer reacting to his storm. You are the stillness that commands it. But obsession is not merely about desire. It is about projection. When he obsesses, he places parts of himself onto you, his idealized fantasies, his hidden fears, his unhealed wounds. He sees you as the key to his unrest, but you are only the mirror reflecting his truth. This is why his fixation intensifies the less you reveal. The less you speak, the more he speaks to himself through you. Your silence becomes a stage where his shadow performs, and he cannot look away. In myth, the oracle never shouted. She whispered, or sometimes said nothing at all, letting the seeker unravel himself in the void. That is the power you hold when you refrain from overexposure. Your silence is not passivity. It is the art of letting him confront the very parts of himself he has buried. And the irony is that the deeper he spirals into obsession with you, the closer he comes to meeting his own forgotten soul. The mirror grows sharper, and he begins to both desire and fear the reflection. Yet silence is not without danger. It can turn into a game, a weapon, if used without authenticity. The line is delicate. Silence must come from truth, not from manipulation. The high priestess is silent because she knows her worth, not because she wishes to punish. If your silence is rooted in insecurity, he will sense it, but if it is grounded in sovereignty, it becomes unshakable. The man may grow restless, even desperate, but beneath his chaos lies an undeniable recognition. He cannot control what he does not fully understand. The red thread begins here. Imagine a mirror, cracked but unbroken. Each fragment reflects a distorted image of him, yet together they still form a whole. When you fall silent, you hold this mirror before him. He sees pieces of himself he has long ignored, and it terrifies him. But he keeps returning, hoping that if he stares long enough, he might find a version of himself that feels complete. What he does not realize yet is that the mirror was never meant to fix him. It was meant to awaken you. And so the question arises, when silence awakens his obsession, what deeper part of yourself is it quietly awakening in you? The silence that unsettles him does not only stir obsession, it awakens a hidden duality inside you as well. You begin to feel the weight of your own power, a sovereignty that does not need permission. In this stillness, you are no longer the woman who pleads to be heard or the lover who bends to be chosen. You become the silent oracle, an archetype older than time itself. She who speaks less but says everything. She who reveals nothing but is seen everywhere. In Jungian language, this is the individuation of the feminine, the return to wholeness, the reunion with the shadow that has too often been silenced by the need to please. For the man, silence is torment because it confronts him with emptiness. But for you, silence is sanctuary. It is the temple where you reclaim energy that was once wasted on explaining, arguing, or convincing. It is the space where you feel your intuition rise, unclouded by the noise of his demands. And once you taste this stillness, you begin to recognize the paradox. Your silence drives him deeper into obsession, but it also drives you closer to yourself. The same mirror that unsettles him steadies you. The masculine psyche, untrained in the art of waiting, cannot endure the pause. He equates silence with rejection, with abandonment, with loss of control. Yet what he fears is not you, but the abyss within himself. Jung wrote that what we resist will persist, and silence is the purest form of resistance. You are no longer feeding his ego with validation, nor cushioning his insecurity with reassurance. You are showing him the raw edge of his own hunger. And hunger, when it finds no food, grows wild. Imagine him pacing in his mind like a man locked outside a door, unable to enter. The more he knocks, the quieter you become, until the sound of his own fists on the wood becomes unbearable. At first he grows angry. Then he grows desperate. Finally he grows obsessed, replaying every word you once gave him, searching for meaning where none was promised. Your silence has transformed into an invisible presence that follows him, a ghost that breathes in the spaces he cannot fill. It is no longer you he is chasing. It is the echo you left behind. And yet this obsession is not love. That is the subtle but dangerous truth. Obsession is his battle with himself, disguised as pursuit of you. He may think he desires you, but what he truly desires is resolution of his own fragmented psyche. The anima he projects onto you is not yours to carry. It is his to integrate. This is why your silence cannot be broken to rescue him. If you break it to soothe his discomfort, you rob him of the chance to face his own shadow. But if you hold it with grace, you offer him something far greater, the possibility of seeing himself. The immediate shift for you is in choosing not to explain. The micro-action is deceptively simple. The next time he pushes for reaction, ask yourself whether answering would serve your truth or only his craving. If it is only his craving, step back. Allow the silence to do its work. You are not withholding, you are preserving. You are not punishing, you are protecting. This is the sacred boundary of the high priestess, who knows that her energy is not a commodity, but a force to be guarded. The cracked mirror reappears here, shimmering in the background. Each time you hold silence, another shard of reflection reveals itself to him. He sees not only the fantasy he projected onto you, but the fractures in his own soul. And while this may cause him to cling harder, it also initiates a confrontation he cannot escape. He is forced to reckon with the fact that what he obsesses over is not you, but the missing parts of himself. And you, by saying nothing, have become the catalyst for his awakening. But for you, the silence carries another revelation. It shows you where your worth truly resides. It is not in how much noise you can make, nor how much reassurance you can give, but in how unshaken you remain when faced with his chaos. Silence becomes a crown, not a cage. And in wearing it, you discover that obsession is not your burden to bear, but his labyrinth to wander. Your task is only to remain the still center, the oracle who knows that some answers cannot be spoken. The question that lingers is this: if silence makes him restless, what will you do when you realize that it makes you free? Freedom has a strange texture when first touched. At the beginning, it feels almost unnatural, as though something is missing, because so much of womanhood has been conditioned to fill silence with explanation, with softening, with reassurance. But once you step into the quiet and let it stretch without rushing to patch its gaps, the silence begins to feel alive. It becomes a pulse you can rest upon, a sanctuary where your intuition finally has room to breathe. This is where you notice a new truth. His obsession grows heavier, while your spirit grows lighter. What he calls indifference is not indifference at all. It is sovereignty. The difference is subtle but seismic. Indifference is cold, defensive, hollow. Sovereignty is steady, rooted, Haken. When you embody sovereignty, you do not turn silent to wound him. You turn silent to hear yourself. And in that hearing, you find a rhythm that no man can interrupt. He senses it but does not understand it, and that misunderstanding feeds the spiral of his obsession. For him, your silence is rejection. For you, it is revelation. The masculine ego, fragile in its need for external confirmation, is pierced by this revelation. When you do not speak, he cannot measure his worth against your reaction. He cannot use your words to prop up his identity. Jung described this as the shadow of possession, the attempt to own what cannot be owned, to grasp what was never meant to be held. The more he tries to hold you, the more your silence teaches him that you were never his to begin with. You belong first to yourself, and that knowledge is both the seed of his hunger and the fruit of your freedom. Imagine him in the middle of the night, staring at a screen lit with unanswered messages. Each line he sends is a stone dropped into the well of silence, yet no echo returns. He reads and rereads old conversations, twisting their meanings, searching for signs of affection that might still exist. He turns to memories as though they are maps, yet every road leads back to the locked door of your absence. The obsession grows not because of what you do, but because of what you no longer do. Silence does not add fuel. It reveals the emptiness of his fire. For you, the shift is subtle but empowering. Instead of rushing to ease his anxiety, you allow him to experience it. You no longer rush in as healer, as rescuer, as mother. You recognize that his unrest is not yours to soothe. The micro-action here is restraint. Before you answer, ask yourself whether your response comes from a need to calm him or from a place of genuine desire to connect. If it is only to manage his spiraling, then the true answer is silence. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. The cracked mirror appears again, glowing faintly in the dark. You see him peering into it, not realizing that each shard reflects a part of himself he has long denied. One piece shows his fear of abandonment. Another shows his hunger for validation. Another shows his longing for control. In every fragment he sees you, but it is not you. It is his own reflection wearing your face. Your silence forces him to look, even when he wants to look away. And you, standing as the oracle, refuse to polish the glass for him. He must face it as it is. The paradox is that while he grows more entangled, you grow more untangled. Silence cuts away the threads of dependency, leaving you freer with each passing day. The sovereignty that grows in you begins to radiate outward, and others can feel it too. Friends notice it in your stillness. Strangers sense it in your gaze. It is not hardness. It is gravity. You become a center of weight, and men who once thought they could shake you find themselves orbiting instead. This is the birth of the silent oracle in you, the archetype who does not chase, who does not plead, who does not bend. And yet there is danger here too. Power always tempts the ego to misuse it. The risk is that silence becomes manipulation rather than truth, that you begin to withhold not from sovereignty but from a hunger to control. The line is delicate. One leads to empowerment, the other to entanglement. The difference lies in intent. Are you silent because you know your worth or because you fear losing him? One liberates, the other traps. The high priestess teaches that silence must always rise from authenticity, not strategy. The deeper question then becomes this. When you discover that silence frees you, will you use it as a shield or will you wear it as a crown? A crown does not need to be announced. It does not shout, nor does it demand recognition. It simply rests upon the head of the one who has claimed her place. When silence transforms into your crown, you no longer fear his reaction, nor do you measure your worth against his obsession. You recognize that his fixation, however intense, is not proof of love. It is proof of his own unfinished work. This is the paradox of your power. While he spirals deeper into obsession, you ascend higher into self-possession. The man's psyche, caught between desire and fear, begins to collapse under its own weight. His pursuit becomes frantic, and yet it feels hollow. He believes he is chasing you, but he is chasing the projection he has cast onto you, the muse, the unattainable, the image of the feminine he has yet to reconcile within himself. This is why silence is unbearable to him. It strips away the illusion that he controls the narrative. Without your words to anchor him, he floats in the chaos of his own shadow. And obsession is born in that chaos, the desperate attempt to grasp meaning where none is given. For you, silence evolves into discernment. You begin to hear the subtleties beneath his noise, the cracks in his voice, the fear behind his anger, the longing masked as control. Yet you do not rush to answer. You know that to fill the silence too quickly is to rob him of the confrontation he needs. Jung called this the confrontation with the unconscious, the terrifying yet necessary descent into the unknown. When you remain still, you are not withholding love. You are allowing him the space to meet himself. Whether he chooses to or not is his burden, not yours. Picture the cracked mirror once more. This time, it does not only reflect his fractured self, it reflects yours too. For every shard that shows his projection, there is another that reveals your past tendencies, to explain, to justify, to bend. Silence forces you to see where you once diminished your own value, where you handed over your energy too freely. And in that recognition, you gather back the fragments of yourself. Slowly, piece by piece, the mirror becomes less fractured. Not perfect, not flawless, but whole enough to reflect a woman who no longer seeks completion through another. The immediate shift you can practice here is radical patience. Instead of rushing to end discomfort, you allow it to exist. When he presses for answers, you let the question linger. When he grows restless, you remain steady. This is not about punishing him. It is about training yourself to resist the pull of old patterns. Silence is the discipline of sovereignty, the daily choice to remain rooted when others would sway. The micro-action is this: breathe before you respond. Ask whether your words would serve your truth or only serve his craving. If they do not serve you, let silence answer instead. As the obsession deepens on his side, he may begin to oscillate between extremes, idealizing you one moment, resenting you the next. This is the hallmark of projection. He sees you not as you are, but as the container of his unintegrated shadow. The more silent you remain, the more violently he swings. Yet in this turbulence, he is also being given a gift, though he may not recognize it. Your silence is the cracked mirror, and every time he looks into it, he is given the chance to awaken. Whether he seizes it is beyond your control. The high priestess never dictates the seeker's journey. She only holds the temple still. For you, the silence becomes less about him and more about you. You start to notice the beauty in your own restraint. You hear your inner voice growing clearer. You feel your intuition guiding you with strength. Silence reveals the shape of your own soul, and the more you trust it, the less you need to be heard in order to feel valid. This is the hidden gift of obsession. It pushes him into desperation, but it pulls you into liberation. What suffocates him nourishes you. And so the riddle sharpens. If silence crowns you and imprisons him, then who truly holds the power? And what will you do with it when you realize that power was never about him at all? Power that is rooted in silence carries a paradox. It does not need to be used to be felt. You discover that the crown you wear does not gleam through words or gestures, but through the weight of presence alone. When you step into a room, it is the stillness around you that speaks first. He senses it even before you move, and the absence of explanation unsettles him more than any rejection could. Obsession thrives in that space because his ego cannot decode the language of your quiet. The very fact that you do not rush to define yourself makes you infinite in his mind. What torments him is not only the silence itself, but what it represents. It represents the parts of you he cannot touch, the inner world that remains beyond his grasp. Every man confronted with the high priestess archetype faces this wall of mystery, and most do not know how to climb it. For him, silence is a locked gate, and he believes obsession will force it open. But what he does not understand is that obsession cannot open doors. It only exhausts him against the threshold. The more he pushes, the more impenetrable the silence becomes, and still he cannot walk away. Meanwhile, your freedom deepens. Silence becomes a ritual, almost sacred, where you return to yourself again and again. In this ritual, you stop seeking his understanding and instead begin listening to your own inner oracle. The subtle knowing that rises is not dramatic. It is steady, calm, undeniable. You begin to recognize how often words have been used as a leash, and how easily you once allowed yourself to be pulled by them. In silence, those leashes dissolve. No argument can bind you. No pleading can sway you, because you have remembered how to breathe in your own space. The cracked mirror continues to shimmer, and now the fragments reflect an even clearer image. He sees his desperation, his unhealed wounds, his hunger for validation. But you also see your own reflection, the past self who once feared losing him, who once thought silence would make you invisible. Now you realize it does the opposite. Silence does not erase you. It engraves you more deeply into his mind. It leaves an imprint that cannot be replaced by noise. And in that imprint lies both the root of his obsession and the seed of your rebirth. The micro-action for you here is a vow of integrity. Each time you choose silence, check the soil it grows from. Ask yourself, is this silence born from fear or from strength? If fear, speak your truth. If strength, let silence be your voice. This practice keeps you aligned, keeps your silence from becoming manipulation. The silent oracle never withholds for power. She withholds because she does not need to explain her power. When silence is used this way, it becomes pure, and its purity becomes magnetic. As his obsession deepens, he may begin to confuse intensity with intimacy. He mistakes his restless hunger for proof of love. But obsession is not love. It is possession disguised as passion. It is the refusal to face his own shadow projected onto you like a cloak. And here lies the danger. If you confuse his obsession for devotion, you may be tempted to surrender your silence too soon, to break the crown in order to soothe his unrest. Yet sovereignty asks more of you. It asks you to endure his storm without dissolving into it, to remain the still water while he thrashes against the surface. This tension between his obsession and your freedom is the crucible where transformation is forged. He is forced to confront the truth that no amount of noise will unlock your silence, and you are forced to confront the truth that no amount of obsession can define your worth. The cracked mirror becomes less about him and more about you. It reveals how silence has not only unsettled him, but awakened the parts of you that once lay dormant. You are no longer the woman waiting for validation. You are the oracle holding the key to your own temple. And yet, one question lingers like a whisper in the dark. If silence can bind him so tightly while freeing you so completely, how will you choose to carry that power without letting it consume you? The danger of power is that it can quietly shift from liberation to control, from sovereignty to shadow. Silence, when carried with purity, is a crown, but when carried with the hunger to manipulate, it becomes a mask. This is the shadow of the silent oracle, when silence is no longer rooted in truth but in fear of being exposed, or in the desire to hold another captive. Jung warned that every archetype has a shadow, and silence is no exception. What frees you can also bind you, if it is wielded without self-awareness. He caught in obsession will not notice the difference. Whether your silence is pure or manipulative, he will still spiral into restlessness, but you will feel it. You will sense when your quiet no longer nourishes your soul but begins to poison it. The crown will grow heavy, the mirror clouded. This is why self-inquiry is essential. Silence is powerful only when it is aligned with authenticity. If you are quiet because you know your worth, the silence is sacred. If you are quiet because you fear losing him, the silence is hollow, and a hollow silence always collapses. Meanwhile, his obsession continues to tighten. He looks at you as though you are both the wound and the cure, unable to separate his need from his desire. Every unanswered call feels like abandonment, every delayed response like betrayal. He is no longer seeing you as a person but as a symbol, a figure that holds the missing pieces of his soul. This is the projection of the anima, the unconscious feminine he refuses to integrate. Instead of facing it within himself, he chases it outside of himself, into you. And your silence forces him to collide with this truth again and again. Imagine him standing before the cracked mirror now, not just peering but trembling. Each fragment cuts him as he tries to piece them together, yet the reflection never becomes whole. He begins to resent the silence, even as he is addicted to it. He despises the mystery, even as he cannot look away. This duality is the prison of obsession. To hate and to hunger at the same time, to burn with longing and to drown in fear. And in his turmoil he may lash out, not knowing whether he wants to possess you or destroy you. Yet all along, he is battling himself. For you, the silence becomes both shield and compass. You recognize that his unrest is not your responsibility, that his projection is not your identity. The micro-action here is detachment, not the cold severing of emotion, but the gentle refusal to carry what is not yours. Each time you feel tempted to break silence out of guilt, remind yourself, his obsession is his mirror, not your reflection. You do not need to fix him. You only need to remain true to your own center. And it is here that you discover the final secret of silence. It is not passive, it is active. It is not emptiness, it is presence. Silence is not about the absence of words, but about the fullness of being. When you stand in it, you become a living paradox, untouchable yet magnetic, distant yet unforgettable. This paradox is what keeps him ensnared and what sets you free. For obsession thrives on mystery, but sovereignty thrives on stillness. The cracked mirror flickers one last time, and now you see the prophecy hidden in its shards. The mirror was never meant to fix him, it was meant to awaken you. His obsession was only the backdrop, the stage upon which you discovered the strength of your silence. He will either face his reflection or flee from it, but you have already crossed the threshold. You have already reclaimed the crown that cannot be taken. And in that moment, you realize the final truth. The woman who owns her silence owns herself. So ask yourself, now that you know silence can awaken obsession in him and freedom in you, will you carry it as a weapon, or will you wear it as your birthright?